I've got fabric, I've got templates, I've even got some gorgeous embroidery floss. Let's make some Christmas decorations. Hello everyone, I'm Caroline and today I'm going to be making 10 Christmas decorations out of felt. Now you don't have to use felt, you can use other fabrics. I like using felt for this. Plus I had such a good bargain, €1, which is about £1 just under, and I had a box full of felt fabric. It was a bit smelly, but it didn't matter. I washed it out and now I've got loads and loads of felt to use, and it's vintage, it's good quality. I've got to clear my desktop, so no time for chatting. Let's get on with crafting. Got a lighter green and a darker green. First thing you need to do is cut out some holly templates. Now, I've cut out this one, just an old piece of a magazine. And that's when I did one and it was too small. I didn't like it, so I cut a bigger one. But I didn't cut out one, I cut out two, because I also wanted a smaller one. So when I cut this one out, I drew a line in, about a centimetre-ish, perhaps a bit less. And then I cut it out, and this is what I ended up with. And now we've got two pieces. Well, then this is very flimsy, so I transferred it to card. So first of all, cut out two of the bigger ones. So I use this pen, which is one of those, if I show you, it's a heat removable pen. And it looks like that, and then if you iron over the top, it just disappears. It's marvellous. But don't worry if you haven't got one, you can use any pen, and then you can just use the other side of it for the bit of craft that's going to be showing. So I've now cut out, as if by magic, two big green holly leaves and two smaller light green holly leaves. You can see the state on this felt. It's really tatty and broken, but I don't care. I think that adds to the charm. Almost makes it look as if it's a vintage decoration. Rather than iron this, you can see there the little pink lines. You can see black all over my hands. Sorry, it's black paint. I can't get it off. I'm going to, look at these. I got some plasters from the pound shop and they were wonderful. You couldn't get them off. And then when they'd run out, I bought another lot and they keep falling off. Oh, part of the thumb saga. Yep, I've still got trigger thumb. So now put the bit you don't want to see there. You can see some on there, so I'm going to turn that to the back. And you want to pop the little one on top of the big one. As simple as that. Now, you don't have to pin it in place. If you don't have any pins, you may not have. I happen to have some pins, and I think it makes it a bit easier. It stops it wandering off. I'm going to sew a line right up the middle of the two, going through both pieces of felt, a line from top to bottom. So I'm going to get a needle and I'm going to get some thread. Now I've got a selection here. Here's my greens. So it depends which ones I'm going to use. And it's great fun picking your colours. I love variegated cotton floss or embroidery floss, cotton thread, whatever you want to call it. But I don't think that's going to work in this instance. I think that one. Or shall I go even lighter? Oh yeah, I like the light one. So I'm going for this one. There are 6 strands on this. I'm going to use all 6 strands because I want this to really show up. Now come up through the stem and make sure you don't pull the end in. It's easily done. And then I'm just going to do a double stitch here to lock it into place. So in exactly the same place, come up again. And then in exactly the same place, come down again. And then I'm going to come up a little bit further away from that stitch. Just see if I can show you close up. As you can see, I'm trying desperately to get things to stay on my finger. I really need to go buy new plasters. I've stuck some masking tape on now. I'm going to stick even more on. How's this for a very quality product? If you're looking at me for advice on medical supplies, please look somewhere else. Right, so now you come up away from that last stitch. And then you go back to the one there that you just finished. And then away from that stitch and back, and this is why they call it back stitch, to the other one, and go right to the end of this, and I'll get back to you when I finished it. And when you get to your very last stitch on, as you can see, this is my second one, pull it through, and then you've got plenty of stitches on the back that you can use to finish off your bit of thread, so you haven't got to do any double stitches. I like to come down a little bit like that. Be careful not to pull too tight, and then go back through, pull it until it's virtually through. Come on, straighten up, stop curling like a little piggy's tail, and then pop the needle through, pull it like that, and you've got a knot. And then some people cut it, but I like to go through another couple of stitches and then cut off the end Looks a bit neater, and you can cut off the beginning where you first started sewing, and you can see I joined some thread there. Chop that off as well. As long as you've done a pretty good job, they won't go anywhere. So now you've got yourself 2 lovely holly leaves, but we need a hanger, and oh look, we just happen to have the right colour embroidery floss. So I'm going to join those holly leaves where I want them to be, and then come through from bottom to top and back through there. And don't worry if that's a bit of a mess. You haven't got to worry at all, because we're going to be covering that. Let's make sure we got enough for a hanger, and then back through and double that stitch up. It's nice and firm. And then tie it in a knot. Then tie it in another knot if you want to. Take your needle off and then tie the top. And that may look like there's something missing, and that is because there is. There are no holly berries on there. Now you've got some options. You can cut yourself little circular holly berries. You can put some buttons on there. You could put some beads on there. But I've got some little pom-poms. And this is the reason you don't need to have it very neat, because you're going to put your pom-poms, or whatever it is you're using as holly berries, over where you added the hanger. Like that. And look at that. Wasn't that easy? Now, for those of you who hate sewing, I know lots of people do, you can do all this with a glue gun. You can glue the backs onto the fronts. Any hems I'm doing, any joining, you can just run a line of hot glue, stick them together, and it's done. It's just that I thought we'd do some sewing this time, just for a change. So there we go, project number 1. Project number 2 is using 2 triangles, and the best thing to do is make a template, and that way then you know you get them the right size. Now, as I was saying about you using hot glue, if you want to at this point, you can just run a line of hot glue around here, glue them together, and then you'll be done. And if you want to write, if you don't want to stitch, but you want little like dashes along, then all you've got to do is get a white Posca pen, I think will work on felt. Depends what fabrics you're using. Or you can use fabric, any sort of fabric pen, and just draw little dashes all the way along to make it look like stitching. But I'm going to do the real thing, so I thought white would be a good colour to go with this. And I got this felt here to put a little bit of a brim on. So let's cut out a brim. And wiggle it as if it really is sort of furry, rather than be a straight edge. You can do this both sides, I suppose. Perhaps I'd have made it a little bit thicker if I was going to do it both sides, but I'm tempted myself now. Okay, I'm going for it both sides. Wiggly, wiggly. Hadn't thought this through properly. Changed my mind. You know what I'm like for changing my mind. I think all the best crafters change their mind. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. So just anyway, while we're doing this, to show you that this hot glue does work, I could stick this on, couldn't I? So I'm going to take one piece of my hat. I'm just going to stick the little bit of white faux fur, we'll call it, along the edge there. It's easy enough, just a quick strip of hot glue. Whoops, clatter, clatter. And that's my nicest edge. Pop that there, and you can see there's a little bit of felt sticking out there, so what we'll do is, very technical, we just snip it off. There we go. So now I want to join the front and the back. Make sure you've got the triangles the right way up. There, and then I'm going to snip those bits off as well, because I can see those. I've just decided I'm going to do this with a mixture of glue and sewing. It'll speed things up because I've got 10 things to make. And also, it'll show you that I'm really not just saying it'll look just as good with glue. If I do a bit of glue and a bit of sewing, you'll see I'm using a knot there to start off my thread. You haven't got to. It looks a bit scruffy, really, but then nobody can see what you're doing behind that little bit of fur. So just start your stitching behind there, and it'll never be seen again. So now I'm going to come out and just do a running stitch. Very close to the edge of the hat, but not so close that felt won't fray, but it can sort of tear a little bit, and I don't want that happening. So I'm going to just do little running stitches, which are as if you're running and dropping little footsteps all the way along, covered in snow. There we go, there's another little running step, snowy step, and do those little snowy steps all the way up the one side. And then when you've put your little snowy footsteps running along all the way up to the top, put your last stitch out, and then come back in from the back, like that. Then put your finger there to catch the thread, get the right length, and now I'm going to do a little fixing stitch there. So I'm going to go one way a little bit and then back through, and we're just going to do like a double stitch again, a stitch on top of a stitch. There are some terms I don't know. I'm a self-taught embroiderer and sewer, so I don't really have the proper names. It's worked for me over the years, so it's what I stick to. So now we've got ourselves a nice firm hanger that's not going to go anywhere. And now put those little snowy boots on and run with your running stitch all the way down the other side of your hat till you get to the bottom. And when you got to the bottom, just tuck a little stitch behind the hat, fluff, fur, whatever you want to call it, the brim, and then do yourself a stitch on top of a stitch, and then I'm going to do another one just in case. And then come through, open up the hat with your fingers, come through the stitch above it, pull your thread through, chop it off, and then poke it up inside. Now, if you're going to be doing the next bit with stitches, then what you need to do is to stitch probably a third of the way along. It just helps to hold the stuffing in place when you're doing this. But I'm going to use the hot glue, so I'm going to get some stuffing, pop it up inside the hat. I'm going to use something to poke it right up inside because I want it up in the point. Everything's sticking to me. You know, well, I don't know. I don't want this overstuffed. I want it stuffed a bit, but I don't want it ridiculously full. Poke it in firmly because you want it to stay out of the way of the glue just for another half a minute. Run yourself some hot glue along the inside. Close the hat, making sure that it is closed, like that. Trim off, then you can see if some bits are sticking out more than others and they shouldn't be there. Trim those off. I'm going to pop a little embellishment on Santa's hat. First, I'm going to put a little pom-pom at the top. Probably put too much glue there, like that. And then a little bit of glue. And I thought on the side here, we could just do something pretty. This is completely if you fancy doing it. Don't bother if you don't want to. And you can really go bonkers on if you want to. Do loads and loads of embellishments. It's up to you. I've got this little toadstool mushroom. Can you see he's got a little tiny face on him? Let me show him there. And there we got a lovely little Christmas Santa hat. Oh, I really love that. That's craft number 2 done. For craft number 3, I've cut myself out a stencil of a boot. Mine, as you can see, this card is so slippery. I ended up drawing the lines where they shouldn't be, but it gave me a rough idea so then I could interpret that as I cut it out. And I've got a really nice solid template. So I'm going to be sewing these two together with the same method, but I want to make sure I sew a straight line at the top. So I'm going to get my ruler, draw a straight line, and now I know exactly where to stitch, and it doesn't matter if it shows afterwards because it's supposed to be pink. It's very dark, isn't it? That will just iron away when I don't want it anymore. So now I'm going to do little running stitches all around. Now, if you haven't got thumbs and are very happy like mine, it's a lot easier when you've practiced to do running stitches like that, in and out, and then pull the thread through, because those stitches will be a lot more even. There's like a natural way that you can do this between the combination of the thickness of needle, thickness of fabric, how your hands work, and it just gives it that uniformity. I'm going to try getting all the way around here using this method. If not, I've got to go back to the slow method, and I'll see you when I get round to the other side. And now I'm at the other side. We're just going to finish it off same way as we usually do. A stitch over a stitch, and then I'm going to come back in, because I usually do, over the next stitch, and then poke it in there and bring it through to the inside of the boot so the end completely disappears. And chop it off. Now I'm going to take a bigger needle and some twine. This is, I think they call this butcher's twine. It's actually very festive, isn't it? And I've got quite a bit here, far more than I need. I'm just being overprotective. Now I'm going to open my boot and I'm going to stuff it with, guess what? Some stuffing. Make sure it goes all the way round to the toe. I don't want this one too firmly stuffed. You can if you want to, but I think I want it fairly flat for what we're going to do with the top, if you see what I mean. If it's too firmly stuffed, I don't think it's going to sit as well. So this one is going to have, it's going to be a little bit softer. Now, out with the twine. I'm going to go from here in. This is really hard on the hands, this thick twine. Leave yourself plenty dangling. And then do a bigger running stitch all the way up to the other side of the boot. It doesn't want to come out. There we go. Ah, that's my problem. I've got a knot in the twine. Look at that. Right, which is the shortest bit there? I think I'm going to have to hope this is long enough and cut that knot out. I wonder what the problem was. I think we'll still have enough because I overestimated by so much. Oh, that's a lot easier now I've sorted that out. So in and out all the way to the back. And I'm going to go around the back of the outside of the boot. Now this is a little bit fiddly. You want to come through, but you don't want it pulling tight. Just to the back there. And now, this is challenging. You want to come to the inside of the boot on that hole there and work your way right down to the front. And come out there. You see what I've done there? I've gone in there and out there. Pull it through. And then making sure I haven't got anything pulled too tight. Bring it to the front. First I'm going to tie the knot and then the bow. So tie a knot to the front because that's where the prettiness is. That's where people are going to be seeing it from. Then I'm going to cut the ends. I think that bow's a bit big, isn't it? It's a bit excessive. He'll be falling over his loops when he's walking. Poor gnome. Or elf. It's an elf we're doing, isn't it? Not a gnome. I'm going to cut to just the length of the bottom of the boot. Then I'm going to open this up. Try and split it into two. Because it's two colours, I think they're about the same size. Then I've only got to thread half of this through the bell. That's my theory. Well, some of it's gone through. That'll do me. You could take some time, get a needle that's the right size, thread it through, get a bell with a bigger hole. But I'm just going for that. That'll be fine. There's one done. Oh, look at that. That flew through. Shame the other one hadn't. Now we just need a hanger, and I'm going to use more of this twine. And now we've got really cute Christmas fabric decoration number 3. And now for Christmas fabric decoration number 4. Sorry, I think I'm going to get messier than ever doing this craft. I've got myself 2 circles. They're 4-inch, and the reason I picked 4-inch is because my paper cutter won't go any smaller than 4 inches for circles. So I got myself 2 4-inch circles. Now I want to add a Christmas tree, so I've got 3 sections like this. They're separate, but they'll add a little bit of 3-dimensional shape. If you don't want to do this, just cut out your plain Christmas tree. That will be fine. And I cut out a little trunk, and I got some snow here. So here is the fabric that I cut. I can put the template away now. There, and there. Oh no, there. I'm getting it the wrong way round. Which way round is it? There and there. So I'm going to join these onto the front first. I'm not going to sew these together until I've done that. This is quite essential. So I'm going to use my glue gun. I'm going to put them in place first to make sure I'm happy with where they're going. You've got to make sure they'll fit on your circle as well. Mine was a little bit over enthusiastic at first, so I'm having to shrink it down a bit. And then that's going to go underneath. So first thing I'm going to do is put some snow on. I've cut this like a little bit of white wiggly. And I'm going to put it on the bottom there. Glue it into place. The little line of glue there. Pop it on like that. Now just as a little holding mechanism, a little bit of glue on the back of each of these pieces. Now look at that. Isn't that a mess? Not to worry. Now turn it over and snip that off. You've got a lovely little template to cut it. If you try cutting it and then gluing it on, you'll get yourself in a right knot. If you do it like that, look at that. I'm going to put a few lights on here, and to do that I'm going to use French knots. I know, don't panic. It does look a bit scary. If you really don't want to do that, you can use beads, you can use buttons, you can just use Posca pens and colour it in. It's really easy to come up with a method. To do this, come up through your felt and then wrap 3 times around your needle, and then almost where you came out, go back in again. Pull it down and you've got yourself a French knot. Look at that. So then I'm going to come across the back a little bit, and I'm going to do one about there. And then wrap it around 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then go back in just a little bit away from where you came up. Pull it through. And look, it's another Christmas light. And we put one, up about there, I think. Through it goes. And then remember, 1, 2, 3 times around the needle. Falls off sometimes, just do it again. And then almost where you came out, back in, pull it through, and you got another French knot. If you haven't done that before, I really recommend you give it a go. It is so easy when you get over the fear factor. So go on, give it a try, see how you get on. Right, I'm going to add lots more French knots now to make this look like it's got tree light on, and then I'll get back to you. So when you've got all your French knots on, you may want to do a star on the top of the tree. You can glue one on. You haven't got to sew one on. I'm going to sew one. And it's a very basic star. Just going to do a 6-point star, which is just 3 lines. My 6-point stars are very, very neat. They're neater than my 5-point stars. My 5-point stars are dreadful. But what I like to do is if you come through there, this is a cheats way of making it a little bit better. And then, like these are all over the shop. It takes a little bit of fiddling, but you can move them down to where you want them to be. And then come back in. And it just makes them a little bit more star-shaped. I'm sorry, that's the best I could do with that sort of thing. And then finish it off. And you can see the back of this really isn't looking pretty. But it really doesn't matter. It's never going to be seen ever again when we sew it up. Should we put some little snowflakes on? And you can put as technical snowflakes as you want to on. You can do French knots, or you can do little crosses. I think I'm going to try little crosses. If it really doesn't work, I'll do some French knots. But I think I'd rather do little crosses. They're less fiddly. Now you're going to do stitches again. Now you've got an option. You could do some blanket stitch around this if you want to. I'm thinking at the moment that this blue that I'm using is really very stiff, and so I just want to use something simple. I don't know what it is about the blue. The other colours were fine, but this blue is not happy. It's got like a backing on it. It's not very pleasant to sew with, and it's funny because I usually love sewing with felt, but I'm not enjoying sewing with this blue. So let's get this done and dusted, and then we can get on with the next bit. Now I've reached the top, I'm going to do a double stitch. So it's a stitch on top of a stitch. Then I'm going to leave a loop, come down to the back and just do like a fixing stitch of a couple of stitches on the back there, because I'm not designing this with the back to be shown. If you want your back to be much neater, then you can just run back through the little running stitches there to hide it. Open it up. Pull my thread to the back, off it goes out of sight. A bit more of a pull, there we go. Now I've got a hanger as well. Now I just need to come down the other side, but you may have noticed, I've realised while sewing that this here is coming out. Now because I was going to sew it with little running stitches, I didn't glue it properly. So now I think I'm going to have to bite the bullet and glue it, because I've made my decision. I'm not going to do too much sewing today. And now I'm just joining more thread in and carrying on down the other side. That was really nice and quick and easy. While I'm stitching this, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you all again for watching my videos. It's really lovely when I see your comments and when I see how many people like the video. And when you subscribe, it's lovely. Thank you to all my subscribers. I really do appreciate you all. And I'm so happy that you're on this journey with me as we discover new things to make and do, new crafts. And I enjoy the challenge of trying new things. I don't know about you, It's nice to do what you're safe with and you're comfortable with, but sometimes it's nice to do something else. Unfortunately, I've got so many things that over the years I've learned. I got plenty of ideas to show you different things. So if you haven't subscribed already, then why not subscribe? Because there's always something new, something interesting coming up on my channel. Now I'm at the end. You've got two choices, because I want to show you as well just how easy it is to glue things and you haven't got to worry. I'm finishing off this little bit of thread and I'm going to glue the bottom, but if you're going to carry on sewing around, which would mean you'd have nicer stitches all the way around the bottom of this, so it is the better option, then I would recommend you leave this, and when you've stuffed it, then you can carry on sewing. But I'm not doing that. I'm showing you the faster method. So we need more stuffing. Make sure you poke it all around the edges before you worry about the last little bit at the bottom. So I think that's plenty. Make sure it's pushed up out of the way while we glue it. Oh, my glue gun is getting really fuzzy now. A little bit of glue. Push it into place. And look at that. There's fuzziness everywhere now. But that was so easy. I'm sure you can all make one of those. It looks really impressive. I mean, look at that. People think, wow, you did sewing, French knots, and you've cut out some brilliant shapes. And that's all it was. You saw how easy that is, and I'm sure you're going to make wonderful ones like this. Right, that's craft number 4. For craft number 5, I've lost a bit. So we'll work with what I've got and then we'll cut out the bit I need later. So I've cut out another 4-inch circle. This is going to be folded in half. So what I'm going to do is get a pin and just fold the bottom, so I know exactly where half of this is. And we're going to make a little bird. So I've cut out a teardrop and a smaller teardrop, like that. And I'm going to want to put those about there on the bird as his wings. So I'm going to get a smaller pin and pin that into place. And I need a little tail. And that's the bit I've lost. So I'm going to cut out another tail. It's really easy. Cut out a long, weird looking triangle. And then just cut out some indentations on the top. Like that. Then that's going to be going in there as a tail, but we're going to need to put an eye on. So where's the birdie's eye going to be? About there. Where's his beak going to be? I'm never good at placing things on faces. I try to avoid faces as much as possible. So I think about, oh yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? So I'm going to put a tiny dab of hot glue on the edge of this eye. I don't want any on the middle because that's where I'm putting the French knot and it'd be really difficult to do one. And we know now where the beak needs to be, and we know the tail's there. So now I'm going to open this up and we're going to do a little bit of sewing. So first thing we're going to do is the eye. So I'm going to need a black thread. And do you think I can find the black thread? No, I can't. So I'm going to use this dark blue. So to make the pupil of the bird's eye. Now you can do this both sides if you want to. Because these are tree decorations, I really only think you need to do one side, but it's completely up to you. Wrap it around 3 times like we did on the last one. Oops. 1, 2, 3 wraps. Poke it in quite close to where you came up. Pull it through. And now that bird's eye is firmly fixed. Oh, I think he looks okay with the blue eye like that. Next thing I'm going to do is to sew down here. I'm going to jump straight down. I'm just going to make sure, doubly sure, that I don't pucker up my bird, because we can't be doing with puckered birdies. Keep that straight. And then go to the end, stitch down. And then, I don't think I'm happy with that there. I think I want it further down there. I'll put it coming out the end of that bit there. And then just sew up a little bit, just to hold the wing in place. It isn't going to be anything fancy, but you can do fancy if you want to. This would look lovely with a pretty stitch all the way around the outside, a blanket stitch, something like that. You could put little sequins or little shiny bits of embroidery turned into French knots onto the wings. You could do anything really. Again, because I'm trying to get a video made, I'm not taking hours and hours as I would like to spend really embellishing these. One day I'll have to do a video with just one item that I spend the time embellishing and embellishing, because I do love adding bits and bits. I'll show you just what can be done. Now, I don't want to come all the way to the end of this teardrop shape, the smaller one. I want there to be a little bit of looseness in it, if you see what I mean. There we go, like that. And I love that. I know it doesn't look much at the moment, but we know what it's going to turn into. So now it's time to sew the bird up. So I'm going to fold it in half. Pop in a pin. And then before we go any further, we need to give this bird some legs. He's going to look really silly without legs, isn't he? And I thought we'd perhaps be okay with some twine legs. I just thought they'd be a bit of fun. Chop off some twine. I'm going to double it up. He's going to need 2 legs. Then I'm going to put knots in for his feet. I know they wouldn't really be knots, but you don't really get felt birds, do you, with sewing on? So check how long I want his legs to be. About there would be plenty. Put a knot where his foot would be. On each side. Trim off to about 1 centimetre. And then unravel. He just fills out his foot a little bit. And now we need to put our bird there and see where his feet need to be. About there. Yep, that'll be fine. A bit long, really. I think they're a bit stranger. Just shorten those a little bit. To do that, I'm going to tie a knot there. And then it'll hold in place better. Yes, that's better, I think. So now we need his beak. Put his beak in position. Like that. There, so I think we're pretty much done there. Where are the legs going to go? We pin those into place as well. Turn them that way. They're facing that way more naturally. Yep. So pin those there, and then pin that into place as well. So now we need to do some more running stitches. And what colour should we sew this up in? Should we sew it in something really obvious like the blue? Or should we do some pink? Or should we do some red? Or should we do some white? I think we'll do red. And now it's just a matter of going around stitching this together. And I think it's going to look better with the red. There's so much colour going on. I think it'll spoil him to do any more. Now at this point, again, you can embellish all over this bird. You could make a brown one and then make him a robin redbreast. So you'd have a red bit stuck on here. You could embroider on some feathers. You could put loads of feathers, cut loads of little teardrop shapes and put those all the way around. Possibilities are endless. Right, we can now just sew most of the way around. It is easy to get carried away, forget yourself, and then think, now how do I get the stuffing in? And you may decide you don't want to stuff this. You may like him flat. It's up to you. When you come to the legs, pull the pin out and just hold them with your thumb in place until you get that far with the stitches. And the more neat pins you can take out as you're going along, the less likely you are to stab yourself. Because I find the more pins are in, I'm terrible. I'm forever stabbing myself with pins as I'm sewing around. Make sure when you're doing this, so when you go through the twine, you'll be able to feel it. You can feel the bulk of it underneath the fabric. And when you get to the wings, don't sew through the wings. Lift those up and you can carry on sewing. Now, if you're going to leave this unstuffed, you can carry on to the end. If you're going to stuff it, then don't go too far. You need to be able to get stuffing into your bird. So I'm going to bring that piece up because I like to have it at the top where I can see it. And I'm going to have to pin that back in place after I've stuffed him. I hadn't thought of that. Poke this in. Give it a good shove. It goes right up to his face or his head. And now stitch up over the gap to hold the stuffing in, hold the tail on and finish off your bird. I'm going to finish off with a double stitch, but I think that tail looks a bit boring. Maybe it's just me, but I think that's boring, so I'm going to put a little bit of stitching on that. Do some like feathery stitches. So bring your needle out. You see I've done holes because I've tried several different things and I wasn't happy with any of them. Poke your needle back in and then come up between the two and a bit more forward, if you see what I mean. Pull it through. You end up with that shape. To anchor it down then, come the other side of the thread and go back in. And you hold it in place. So do another one now, there. And we want it the other side there. So now come down a little bit away from the two bottom bits, so you know where to put the top bit. I'm sure there's a much better way of explaining this to you than I'm explaining, so sorry about that. It's not that you're not getting it, it's I'm not explaining it. So now come down a bit again, there and there. So they go in a straight line, those stitches, but then come up in the middle, a bit away from them, to anchor the V shape like that. I think I can fit one more on the end. And this is, I love this part. This is the just spending time embellishing and enjoying yourself. The creative, the making the project is over with. Now it's just making it look cute and pretty. Who noticed the deliberate mistake? I forgot to add a hanger. So where do I need to have the hanger hanging? We're going to have it from his head there, I think, or a bit lower. Just below his head, I think. And I think he's really cute. Let me know how you get on if you make one, and let me know if you put loads and loads of embellishments on and what he looks like. If you could send me a picture, I'm on my art journey at AOL.com. You can send your pictures there and I can see what you've made. So that was number 5. We're halfway through. So for our next Christmas craft using fabric, I've got 2 circles of felt in a pretty cerise colour. I'm going to get my pen and we should put my white refill in. If I fold this in half, I only need one. Let's move that out of the way. Stop being so cluttery, Caroline. And then I'm going to draw a line down there. And I don't have to worry if it doesn't come off because I'll just iron it off. And then put the point to the point. Draw a line there. I set those triangles in half with a line. Hopefully they'll be even. And now I'm going to embroider a snowflake. You may not need to have any input as to how to embroider a snowflake onto something. You may be really good at this. But if not, then I'll try to make it as quick as possible. I'm going to use backstitch because I like backstitch. So I'm going to do 4 stitches up. Then I'm going to come there. Difficult to describe where that is. There. And then I'm going to go across there, and a bit like we just did on the bird, I'm going to come back to the stitch. I'm not going to leave a gap to the stitch. Make sure this goes underneath your needle. Pull like that. And you've got yourself a V on the end of your snowflake. Go back in where you came out. Whoops. Like that. And you need 4 of those. And now come out at an angle in between the 2, or each 2, for 3 stitches. And then come up the 1, but now you're going to put a French knot. Because I've shown you how to do a French knot, so let's get one done. Wrap it around a needle, poke it through almost where you came up, and you've got that effect. And do that on the other 3 places as well. And now come back down to where one of the first stitches on any of these legs are, and come out through the top where the stitch was and go up to the next stitch on the next leg, and then down to the first stitch gap on the next leg and back up to that one, like that. Now come out there on the first leg, up to the second leg, down to the first leg and back up to the second leg. You're creating a sort of inner star shape on this snowflake, and it's really pretty. And if you want to, you can do that again on another layer, whatever you like, but I'm going to leave it as that because now we have all the stitching to do all the way around the outside. And just to show you, look at the mess on the back of that. Don't feel bad if the back's a mess. Who on earth's going to see it? Because now it's covered, never to be seen again. Well, it's going to be seen again a little bit because I'm going to bring my thread through these loops on the back up to there, and then put my needle through there before I pull it tight, and that just locks it in place. And now we're going to do, guess what? Yep, you've guessed it, a running stitch all the way around the outside, and I'll get back to you when it's time for stuffing. Finish it off. And then in the ideal world, we'll have enough thread to make a hanger. Oh, I think we just about will. Do a double stitch there. Come back through that stitch. Up. And down. Through the other side of the stitch. And then I'm going to do, oops. Very carefully, because I'm running out of cotton, very carefully I'm going to do another double stitch. It's going to have so many stitches in the top of this. Like that. And then I'm going to go in at the back, which is a bit of a mess. Come out a bit further down. Give it a tug. Snip it off. Wiggle it around. And now I'm not happy with the outside of this. And so I'm going to bring in my pinking shears. This is weird, this pinking shears. It doesn't open up. You've got to pull it, which is really awkward. And I'm going to cut around the outside because I've left enough space. Watch you don't cut your stitches, whatever you do if you do this. But I thought, one, it won't look so bad with such a wide hem. And two, it'll look really decorative with a pinked edge. I wonder why they call it pinking. I remember when we had a card when I was a little girl, we were supposed to put 3 star in, and my father used to put 2 star in because it was cheaper, and it used to what they call pink. Made a funny noise. Right, I don't want to cut the hanger off, so I'm going to be very careful on this bit. Hopefully the hanger's still intact. Yep, it is. No guarantees that it would be. And then we've got a really pretty snowflake. You can add some glitter onto that. You can add more embellishments if you want to. And that is craft number 6. For this Christmas craft with fabric, I had a piece of folded paper, cut out a heart, and used that to make a template for the bigger size heart. I wanted a smaller one, so I cut inside about 1 centimetre, and then I had the perfect fit of a smaller heart, which I made another template for, and I cut out this heart. I've got this gorgeous little key. I thought it was lovely, and I'm going to sew this to the front of the heart there. Now you can glue this if you don't want to sew it. It's really not difficult to sew. Just got to go over and under 1 or 2 times, and now that is going to go on top of one of these hearts. So now I'm going to end my thread because that's the end of the white thread for the moment, but I will be coming back to it. If you're going to be gluing the little white heart on, but you're going to sew the next bit, then you can leave the white thread in. I'm going to pop this central on the heart there. I'm going to use a pin to hold it in place. Like that. And coming from behind, I'm going to do little running stitches all the way around to attach this. So you can see what I'm doing, little running stitches. This time you've run through some red paint. And every time you put your foot down, you're putting a red footprint as you're running around the outside of your heart. Right, I'll see you when I get right the way around this heart, back to the beginning to see what we're doing next. And now I'm fixing the 2 pieces of this heart together. You can see I've started off the sewing, left a loop. I'm doing that double stitch, which is a marvellous thing to do if ever you want to secure anything. And now we've got a really nicely strongly held, that's a right mouthful, a nice strongly held loop for hanging. And now I'm just going to use the same running stitch and go all the way around the outside. But whereas last time I did red on the white, this time I'm doing white on the red. And be very careful. You don't, like me, accidentally sew your hanger into your heart shape. I really enjoy sewing felt. It's one of those little luxuries in life. The feeling of it is so tactile and it's so easy to do, so fulfilling. You don't have to worry about edging the fabric in case it frays. You can just cut it and sew it. You can cut it with a straight edge, you can cut it with a pinking shears, whatever you've got, and it'll look fabulous. Right, well, I'm going to carry on and I'll get back to you when I'm ready for the stuffing. We're at the stuffing stage now and I'm going to fill this up with some stuffing, but something to bear in mind, if you're making these as a gift or if you're making them to sell, it might be an idea to put a little bell inside. Now, it won't really make much difference unless the tree is getting bumped about a bit or if it gets in a draft in a hallway, something like that. There's not really the chance for the bell to ring, but it makes it much more appealing. So somebody may decide, oh, I want the one with the bell in, so it may be worth you considering that. And if somebody receives a heart like this and it jingles, well, that just makes it all the more special, doesn't it? So it's up to you. Would you put a bell in this? Let me know. I'm not, but you may decide, oh yes, it definitely needs a bell. So when you've stuffed it, again, the amount of stuffing you put in is up to you. I'm not overstuffing any of these ornaments because I think they look better without being stretched to within inches of their life. Now we just finish this off with a little bit more stitching and we're ready. So there we have it. I really think this is so cute, and as usual you can completely cover this in embellishments or embroidery, or you can leave it quite plain. It's up to you. You may be able to hear that in the background. Somebody is tearing tape in this house. It is never quiet in this house. Right, let's get on with the next one. For this next Christmas decoration made from felt, I'm going to use these two templates, which I made myself. You can make these really easily. You can go online and find templates just about everywhere, but I made these. Even if they're a little bit off, I like the quirkiness of them being homemade. So I've made this mug, which is just a square with some rounded corners on the bottom. Now, perhaps it's a bit longer than a square, and like a D shape sticking out the side for the handle, and a blob for the top. So I cut this out of white twice and this out of red twice. And I end up with this. Now this is going to be a Christmas hot and steamy drink with a little bit of cream on the top. So the first thing I need to do is to add some sprinkles to this cream because it looks a bit boring, doesn't it? I think all cream needs sprinkles. Now, when you're doing this, you've got two choices. You can use French knots, and you've seen how to make those now, so you'll be fine making those. But if you don't want to bother, because they are a little bit more tedious than just a running stitch, I'll show you how to make sprinkles out of a running stitch. It's so easy. It's like falling off a log, that's what they say, isn't it? So just tie a knot on the end of my cotton so it doesn't pull through. And then get your little piece of white felt, come through and put one running stitch. And there you've got a sprinkle. And then randomly over here, we put another sprinkle. Don't jump from there to there to there to there because you waste cotton and you end up with such a lot of mess on the back. Just put a few of each colour on. I suppose I wouldn't have gone the same direction there because there's one in the same direction below it, but it really doesn't matter because when all your sprinkles are in place, you won't be able to tell. And don't overdo your first sprinkles. You might think, oh, there's not enough there. But it's surprising just how quickly this is going to have enough sprinkles easily. And that's my blue done. Now I'm going to do both sides because this little bit of blue isn't really worth keeping. It's not that long. So I've decided I'm going to do the other side, and then you can see how to do the other side. Make sure your two pieces are matching like this. And then this is going to be the outside. So you're going to want this as the front. If you do there, and then you decide, oh, I'm going to do it on this side here, then when you fold them over, they're really not going to match. So make sure they match first. Get the sides together, the wrong sides together. And then, right, if that's the front, this is the back. This is what you want to see. And then we'll just add on a few more sprinkles. So now I'll just add on a few yellow ones, a few red ones, and I'll get back to you. So now I finished the sprinkles on the top of my cream. So now we just need to put some words on the mug. Now, a good idea is always to put the name of the recipient on. And I've got a grandson called Max, and that's a nice short name for putting on. No, this doesn't want to work. That's a nice short name for putting on a mug so that I can get it done quite quickly. So I'm going to use a pencil. I tried using a black pen, it didn't work. And it's a good idea to get your template and draw it on your template first to check that it will fit, or whether you need to adjust the size of your letters at all. I don't think those are very even, but it doesn't matter. We're going to say that it adds to the charm, okay? So we're going to do a back stitch. So do your first stitch up and down and then back out, back to the original stitch and out further on than the last stitch. Pull it through like that. I'm going to shorten this a little bit. It's a little bit over enthusiastic, the length on this. So now I'm going to go back again with my back stitch to the top of that stitch. I'll do it one piece at a time, as you can see, and then up further away from your last stitch. Now on a point, it's nice and easy when you think about it. I'm going to go back to my last stitch, and then I want to come on further ahead of this one, but I need to turn down. So I'm just going to come down, following the line a little bit further away from the last stitch, if you see what I mean, and then back to there, and you're on your way again. And now I'm going to use this white and do some running stitches all the way around the outside of the mug. Now go around the outside of your cream with a little bit of hot glue. Now you can sew this up with some white thread. Oops, the green one's falling over. You can sew that up with some white thread, but for the sake of speed, I'm gluing it. And now out with the stuffing. And then I'm going to be pushing that inside the mug. And this is fiddly, definitely. I won't say this isn't fiddly. If you decide you're going to sew the white to the red, then it can be a lot easier if you make it into, if you see what I mean. You attach this, attach the white, then sew it all together. But I like the idea of the cream sort of almost looking, well, not realistic, I know, but like it looks now, if you see what I mean. A little bit more three-dimensional. And there you've got a lovely mug of hot chocolate with some cream on the top. And you can decide it's cinnamon flavoured, whatever you fancy, caramel flavoured. So that's hanger number 8. Cuppa anyone? Time for the next one. For this next craft, I'm using this cream floss, or embroidery floss, embroidery thread, whatever you want to call it. I've got 2 little mittens. Again, make yourself a little template. I made a template and then decided it was too small, so I just did it by eye and made it a little bit bigger, and I'm happy with that. If you're using scrap cardboard, it doesn't matter anyway. This is completely optional. You can go all the way around the outside of the mitten. I just think this really looks lovely with these little running stitches. So I'm trying to put it on as many things as possible. It just lifts it to another level than if you just leave them plain. And if you cut your thread too long, this happens. You end up with knots. And you want to go all the way around this mitten and then all around the other mitten. Next I'm going to take this, I'm not quite sure what you would call this. I don't know if it's for piping or what, and I'm hoping that I can thread this through my needle. If not, we're going to have to glue it. Right, there's no way that is threading through my needle, so I'm going to tie a knot there. Figure out how long I want this hanger to be. It's going to be roughly there. So I'll make it a little bit longer. I'd rather it too long than too short. And then tie a knot there. And now glue them into place on the back of the mittens. Make sure your mittens are facing thumbs out or thumbs in, whichever you prefer. I like thumbs out. And the bit that you want at the top is the bit where you're going to glue on your knot. And now I'm going to use this. It's actually a self-adhesive lace. I love this self-adhesive lace. It doesn't always stick, so I'm hoping it'll stick to the felt. If not, we can always add some hot glue. So if we pop that over there, like that, cover in the knot, and wrapping around, trim that ugly bit off. It's an ugly bit doing showing. So now you can either leave those dangle over a branch like that, but I'm going to tie a knot because that way then you can select the hanging length of them. And I like them to hang like that. Not exactly the same length, but you could do that, but I don't like that myself. I like them to be sort of one overlapping the other, and they're probably going to end up going that way, aren't they? And then tie a knot in the top and slip it down, and you've got yourself a hanging loop, and it holds those in the position you want them to be. Let's try putting a little tiny bow onto each of these. I don't know if it's going to work. We'll give it a try. One on that side, making sure your gloves are facing thumbs out or thumbs in, depending on what you want. So look at that, nice and simple. If you've got grandchildren or if you're a teacher of a class and you want them to do a little bit of sewing but nothing too challenging, then that's a bit of fun for them. Right, it's the last one next. For this next decoration, I'm going to skip a stage. I've drawn myself a template of a Christmas tree. Normally I would transfer this onto a piece of cardboard, but I'm not going to. I'm going to take the risk of putting it straight on here to try to make this one a little quicker, to show you can usually find a shortcut of some sort. And you don't always want to find a shortcut because it's fun to take your time over things, but sometimes you just haven't got that time. If you're just rushed and you've only got a short amount of time to craft, or if you're making to sell and you think, right, I've got to make 300 of these, I really need to do this as quickly as possible, then that's what you can do. This is fiddly because you're trying not to cut your paper. So this way isn't the perfect way, but it's the quick way. And there we go, one tree. It looks like a little person. And I just need to do that again on another piece of fabric. First things first, let's get a hanger on. So I'm going to use this little piece of white embroidery floss, and I'm going to come down with a knot and then make the knot a little bit bigger further on, just so that my glue has something to grip onto. So that's going centrally. I'm going to run a little bit of hot glue right to the top. Pop that onto the hot glue, making sure your knot gets in the hot glue. And now, in the interest of saving time, I'm going to glue this together instead of sewing it. But don't do it all in one go, because you probably won't manage it. And you can try it, and you may be quite happy with the result you get. Let's make sure I've got this going the right way. You can see I'm already making a mess. Just doing it in stages. If I was doing this in one go, it would be a disaster. Come down with the next bit, and then before we get to the bottom, we're going to do a little bit of stuff in, because otherwise it's a long way up to get all your stuff in. Make sure that your hot glue is cool before you do this, otherwise you'll have to re-glue it. And this way, you can see it's quite a challenge to get this right up to the top of the tree, as it is. If you were doing that right from the bottom, it'd be much more difficult. Now this is really easy. If you want to do something quick, easy and effective, then I would recommend this one as being the fastest, as far as I can see. I mean, you may be quicker at sewing or something, and you'll be able to do the others faster. But for me, this one is super quick. And also, if you use this method on the others, that'll make them super quick, rather than sewing them. Down to the last section. Try not to get as much fluff on your glue gun nozzle as I've got. And then, last bit of stuff in, and glue along the bottom. Now go and check every little join, because you may have missed bits. It's easily done. And now I've got this little jar of bits and pieces. There's a bit of everything in here. I'm not quite sure what I've got. I've got circular pearls there. I've got half pearls there. I've got a bead. So I thought we'll have a look in here, see what I got that I can stick on this tree. So there you have Christmas tree number 10, complete with glue strings everywhere, as is usual. So here are the 10 completed Christmas decorations out of felt fabric. And I really don't think I could choose a favourite. Oh, no, not a chance. What about you? I think possibly the bird, possibly the stocking. I like that. I like this. Oh, I don't know. What's your favourite of all these? I really would love to know. And how would you adapt these ideas? What would you do to perhaps make them more decorated, less decorated, faster to make, perhaps make them look more high-end? I'd love to hear your comments, and that way then everybody else reading the comments can learn a little bit from that, and we'll all learn from each other. How brilliant is that? Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, to give me a thumbs up. And before you go, I know I'm always doing it. I find a channel I like and I forget to subscribe, and I can never find them again. So don't forget to subscribe before you go. Well, I'll see you all next time. But until then, don't forget, Happy crafting and have fun. Bye.